Cypress Financial Group presents the Retirement Roundtable podcast with John Scallan. Get more at cypressfinancial.net. Now, let's get to the show.
John, over the past week, watching TV, and you see a lot of commercials from these big box firms, and they all say the same thing. I want to be your financial advisor. Hey, reach out to me right now to be your wealth manager. I want to be your income planner. What is the difference? Are these all one and the same? And I guess more importantly, what are you?
It's like the difference between a bartender versus the new term, the mixologist.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's just the creative job titles, but sometimes there are meaningful differences. Let's talk about the financial advisor is the broad umbrella term. Think of someone who helps with your overall financial picture.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got the wealth manager. They work typically with high net worth clients, and they focus a lot on growing and preserving assets across multiple generations. But here's where it gets interesting. An income planner, like one of the things we specialize in at Cypress Financial, it focuses specifically on one critical question. How do we turn your life savings into reliable, dependable, and more often than not, guaranteed income that'll last for your entire retirement?
Each designation, I guess you could say, has a different focus on what they strive to do.
You know, Mark, I would say this is probably the case for many advisors who have been in the industry for as long as we have. We probably do all three of these. Certainly, we have high net worth individuals. Certainly, we have clients who come in the door and say, hey, look, this is what I have. It has to last for my entire life, for the entire life of my spouse. And God knows we do an incredible amount of minutia, helping planning for taxes, talking about insurance strategies. We talk about long-term care. So again, even though, you know, these three terms focus a little bit differently on a skill set, I would think most of the quality firms in this area or across the country for that matter, they all do some of each one of these terms.
We invite you to call this weekend to 504-732-1001. John is offering a financial GPS. That initial consultation, it's no cost, it's no obligation. It helps to address your goals, your passions, and your struggles to and through retirement. And again, if you've saved at least $250,000, that initial consultation, that financial GPS with John Scallan, no cost, no obligation. We have a representative standing by right now. 504-732-1001. So, speaking of income, I want you to hear this clip from Morningstar's Christine Benz. Here's what she says about paying yourself in retirement and what some of the best options could be.
The annuity might go hand in hand with someone employing a flexible withdrawal strategy. So if you have your sort of basic living expenses locked down with a combination of Social Security and possibly an annuity, that can give you more comfort. It can just make it easier to perhaps tighten your belt after a year like 2022 when stocks and bonds both fell simultaneously. So I actually think those two things work really nicely together, where you've got more stable lifetime income.
So, John, it basically sounds like she's talking about locking down basic expenses with Social Security and annuities, then the flexibility for everything else. Do you use this layered approach with your clients? Do you agree with her?
Well, Mark, Christine just described what I might call, let's just say, belt and suspenders approach to retirement income. Listen, she is absolutely right about 2022, that nightmare scenario when stocks and bonds are both kind of bottoming out. You know, clients with guaranteed income retirement plans, they didn't panic because they knew their essentials were covered. You know, I think about 2022, I picked up the phone, I called one of our more risk-averse clients. I said, hey, I know you're seeing a lot of news in the market about, and he cut me off kind of mid-sentence. He says, John, my wife and I didn't even blink. We're sleeping easy at night because we know We've got the income to last a lifetime, and it is not affected by the ebbs and flow of the market. You know, I also worked with a retired educator from Jefferson Parish. They were really nervous about the market, the ups and downs. Her Social Security covered her basic living expenses. There are no bells, there are no whistles. What this did was provide the additional guaranteed income for the lifestyle and expenses she wanted in retirement.
But John, as we're talking about an annuity as a great opportunity for some guaranteed income in retirement, there are some people, and you hear them say, annuities aren't even worth the paper that they're written on. Why is there such a negative feeling about them?
You know, Mark, you're correct in that the jury on what an annuity is and how it works and is it beneficial, it's all over the board. I mean, some people, you know, really understand them, they appreciate them, but here's the reality. Today's annuities are not your grandfather's annuities. These modern contracts, they offer flexibility, liquidity options, downside protection, beneficiary protections, long-term care riders, nursing home enhancements. So when you use these products correctly as part of a diversified retirement plan, they can really be a powerful tool.
John, we've heard the phrase annuity x-ray before. That's something you offer at Cypress Financial. So somebody could be listening this weekend. They say, I'm all about annuities. I've got a couple of annuities, but I don't know how this market has affected them. There may have been some changes I'm not 100% on. You offer an annuity x-ray. Can you walk me through what that details?
You know, Mark, we always encourage our clients, our listeners, whenever we are doing an event, whether it's educational at the library or a white tablecloth event, a client appreciation event, we say, listen, if you have annuities and you've had them for 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, we will absolutely give you an honest, straight up evaluation of what you have in terms of those products and exactly what they do. Again, we talk about this 10-year treasury. The 10-year treasury is the backbone for mortgage rates, money market rates, auto loans, student loans, everything across the board. The bottom line is when an insurance carrier can get a strong rate on the 10-year treasury. And for the record, the 10-year treasury is close to a 20-year high today. So what that means is if you were to get into an annuity today, or if you had the benefit of moving one annuity into a more current annuity, it could have huge implications in terms of more income, in terms of downside protection, in terms of long-term care benefits. Again, these annuities today are light years from where they were in the past.
Income is the outcome that matters the most in retirement, and there are opportunities for some guaranteed income in retirement with the help of an annuity. So if you want more information, we invite you to make the phone call. Sit down with John Scallan, 504-732-1001. Again, 504-732-1001. And we know you got a big weekend ahead of you, so even if you make the phone call, the representative's just going to ask you a couple of quick pieces of information, a name, a phone number. What can John help you with the most as you approach retirement? And then we'll get you set up to sit down with the team. Or if you just need to call and then hang up so the number's locked in, and give the team a call back on Monday or Tuesday, totally acceptable. 504-732-1001 or always online, cypressfinancial.net. John, as we talk about the power of income, we always hear the talking heads. Every year they say you need to have this much for retirement. Recently, that target number was 1.4 million. They say you need 1.4 million for retirement. But this year, Northwestern Mutual study says it's down to $1.2 million. The reason? They say it's inflation. So, John, should people be feeling better about their retirement prospects than they did this time last year?
Mark, I am so glad you're clarifying who, quote, they are. I guess in this case, it's Northwestern Mutual. I've been wondering about that my entire life, especially when my wife says, honey, you know what they say.
I know they say.
Mark, here's the thing about these retirement number studies. They're like saying, how much does a house cost? Well, Are we talking about a mansion on St. Charles? Are we talking about a cottage down in Acadiana? These surveys are basically financial horoscopes. They're fun to read, but in my opinion, not very useful for real planning. What matters more than hitting some arbitrary national number is having enough income to maintain your desired lifestyle. I've helped clients retire comfortably on less than 500,000, and I've worked with others who needed $2 million dollars or more. Again, I always like to throw this in. If you are eyeballing retirement, if you're moving into retirement, you might wonder, well, how could someone retire comfortably on 500 or need a little bit more work if I had 2 million? Again, the management of your debt load. This is a huge part of your true forecasting. Are you close to paying off your home? Have you made commitments to some of the grandkids or the kids on educational help? Again, it's not always about the income. It's also about the management of your debt and creating a personalized plan. Mark, when you call our office, 504-732-1001, we don't start by asking if you have, $1.26 million. We start by asking about your dreams, your concerns, and what retirement looks like to you. I would rather see someone with, let's say $800,000 and a solid income strategy than someone with $1.5 million and no plan. The plan, remember, the plan is what transforms your savings into sustainable lifetime retirement income.
All right, John, so you're talking to your buddy at the club. And he goes, John, I've heard your show. I've listened to the Retirement Roundtable before. I've got a target date of $800,000. And John, well, I think I'm doing good. I am not going to call you until I hit that number. How do you respond to that person, John?
I would say, listen, at the end of the day, we don't want to tell anybody what to do, but I would encourage you. It is never too early to start the planning process. Mm-hmm. It's never too early to get a second opinion. It is never too early to start tweaking the plan. And the plan is not just about income. The plan is, what do you want to do? What are your goals? What does your debt load look like? Does it make sense to maybe wait a little bit longer before we pull our Social Security level? What is keeping you up at night? Again, these are the things that we really focus on. And remember, these plans are custom designed to you, your family, your hopes, your dreams. And again, it is never too early to get a second opinion or even start with the foundation of a plan that's going to carry you for the decades to come.
504-732-1001. If you're waiting to hit a certain number, it could be causing more harm than good. So today's the day to reach out to John Scallan and the team at Cypress Financial and sit down for that initial no-cost, no-obligation consultation. 504-732-1001. All right, John, we got to talk about that 5-letter word for a second here. Let me get comfortable here because nobody likes talking.
I'm always wondering what's going to come out of your mouth. Last time it was an acronym that I thought for sure it was the IRS. So let's talk about this 5-letter word. I'm just dying to hear it.
Taxes.
Taxes. Oh, well, that's the IRS's first cousin. Yeah.
But we got to talk about it. You may not have a health problem. You may not have a wealth problem, but we all got problems with our taxes. John, one of the most common mistakes people make planning for retirement is not factoring in their taxes. John, how and why are taxes different in retirement than in our working years?
Mark, what's funny, most people think retirement taxes will be lower than their working years, but here's the reality. It's like assuming your electric bill will be cheaper just because you're home more, right? Mm-hmm. The IRS doesn't give senior citizen discounts. Your tax rate might change, but between Social Security taxation, Medicare premiums based on income, RMDs, that's when the government forces you to take money out of your retirement accounts. Many retirees end up in the same or even potentially a higher tax bracket. Each of these income sources is taxed differently. Social Security might be partially taxable. 401k withdrawals are fully taxable. Investment income could be taxed as a capital gain and not ordinary income. Roth distributions could be completely tax-free. It gets complex very, very quickly. Here's one more thing. Many people assume they'll be in a lower tax bracket in retirement, but that's not always the case. If you have substantial retirement savings in traditional IRAs, 401ks, your RMDs, your required minimum distributions could push you into a higher tax bracket than you expected.
Somebody made a great point once. They said, Uncle Sam doesn't retire just because you do.
Very well said.
Yeah, he's going to be with you until the very end. John Scallan and the team at Cypress Financial have partnerships with local CPAs to help with your tax strategy. That begins with a phone call to 504-732-1001. Speaking of, real quick, John, I know a couple of weeks ago we had a phone call from a young lady, and when you talk to the representative, again, one of the questions they'll ask you is, what is something that John can help you with? And before she could even get the question out, the young lady goes, taxes. What do you think? Taxes? Well, how about taxes? All right, then. So you need some help with taxes. So if it's on your mind, we invite you to call 504-732-1001. You know, John, what are some of the other mistakes that jump out that could be very costly to an overall retirement strategy?
Mark, I have been saying this for decades. I will continue to pound the table. Listen, not having a written plan is huge. I see people who've saved diligently for decades, but really never created a strategy for turning those savings into income. I've seen clients come in the door, they've accumulated a lot of money, but they're almost afraid to spend their own money. You know, another costly mistake is leaving your job too early without understanding the financial impact. I worked with a gentleman who took an early retirement at 62, but he wasn't clear on how much that would reduce his Social Security benefits over his lifetime. Social Security conversations are critical. Many people overlook it, but it's very, very important. And here's another one. AARP does a study every single year. Their number one cost, their number one expense in retirement is always health care. Medicare doesn't cover everything. And by the way, long-term care, things like nursing homes or in-home care, I've seen this completely devastate a retirement plan if you're not prepared. Again, the plan. It is the start of building a foundation that can last you for 30 years in retirement and help you not get run over by these unexpected expenses that usually come to us all.
John, as you talk about building a plan this weekend here on the Retirement Roundtable, and again, we invite you to reach out to John at any time. If you hear anything you need some clarity on, you say, you know what, John brings up a good point, I want to have a deeper conversation. 504-732-1001. Again, 504-732-1001. We're online at cypressfinancial.net. How about debt? When we go into retirement, a lot of times our biggest debt is going to be our mortgage. So in your opinion, John, when you're building that plan, do you think it's okay to go into retirement with a little bit of debt, maybe a mortgage, or would you want us to be completely debt-free? In your opinion, what's the best step?
Well, I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all strategy. Again, over and over, I will say this. Each plan is unique. Listen, I've had clients come in here at 62, 63 years old and still have a bit of a large mortgage. We lay out the numbers. We look at the plan. We say, hey, your full Social Security benefit is at 67. Is it possible that we can delay Social Security until 67 and let's knock out most or all of that mortgage? Because again, usually the mortgage is one of the biggest expenses that people have. Again, people who have, more assets, maybe less debt, it might be okay, depending on the numbers, depending on the concerns of each individual or each couple. Again, these plans are custom designed. If you come to our office, if you give us a call, it would be truly an honor and a privilege to build the plan for you, to give you a second opinion, or just to give you some ideas that make sense to you and that can really make the difference in your retirement.
And John, there was a YouGov survey that revealed only 27% of adults take advantage of a financial advisor. I want you to talk to those adults out there for whatever reason haven't made the phone call. What would you tell them?
You know, Mark, what I have seen throughout my career, there are just a number of reasons why people don't pick up the phone. I mean, we've heard people say, John, I never thought I had enough money for this to be worth your time. I've had people who said, you know, I was really overconfident. I felt like I had enough money. I've had people come in and say, hey, I probably retired a little bit too early. I didn't think I would live for 30 years in retirement. What I would suggest to anyone out there who is listening, the financial planning process is all about you. Now, certainly the numbers never lie. The numbers always come into this. But if you give us the opportunity to meet you, to talk to you, to find out about what is important to you, the foundations of a financial plan, they're not really a heavy lift. What is your financial GPS? What are your goals? Okay. What are you passionate about? And what are you struggling with? These are the three keys. What are you worried about that we really have to build into a plan? Again, it's simple as a meeting, us getting to know each other, developing a little trust. Then we can go to work on helping you really see clearly the path to a stress-free retirement that addresses the big issues that may come back and cause you some challenges later on in life.
And John Scallan, how can we reach out to you and the team at Cypress Financial?
We are very easy to find. We have offices on both sides of the lake. On the South Shore, 3421 North Causeway Boulevard, almost across the street from Lakeside Mall. Straight on the other side of the famous Causeway Bridge, we have an office on Florida Street, so we're serving, you know, our clients and our friends on both sides of the lake. You can always find us at cypressfinancial.net. And again, always by telephone, 504-732-1001. I will say this again, it would be an honor and a privilege to meet you, get to know you, and we will help you any way that we can.
Investment advisory services offered through Cypress Financial Group, a registered investment advisor firm. Registration is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance products, including annuities offered through Cypress Financial Group, John Scallan, Louisiana Insurance License Number 1064997. The firms are separate entities. Annuity guarantees rely on the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company and are not offered by Cypress Financial Group. Read your contract for restrictions, limitations, or penalties.